It is for him.
Hello.
Hey, sorry. Hey, sorry. We have snow this today coming, so they canceled school. You'll
Okay.
hear my daughter talk in the background.
Yeah, no worries. We've been through that in the pandemic, haven't we?
Yeah, I hear you. It's just that I'm used to kids going to school. I don't know if you saw my note. I'm sorry I can't present today. It's just
Yes, I did mark that in the agenda as crossed, that we will not be doing this follow-up. Perhaps we can schedule it for next week, if possible.
Next week is fine. Yeah. Sorry about that. Sorry about the last minute.
No worries. So we will wait a few more minutes for people to join.
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, boss.
Morning.
Nirav. So, Panos and Tim, do we want to is there any update from Nirav that we are going through, or?
So we will not be discussing Nirav's lifecycle management documents this week, as per Nirav's request. Otherwise, I do have 2 items in the agenda. It's the opens plus the general discussion about fleet management as a product that we could put some ideas down.
That's a good point. Yes, yeah.
Yep. So I would be asking, we are 4 minutes in, I would be asking for opens if anybody wants to bring a subject for today's meeting. Or should we also add, as a procedure, and ask every time if we have pending questions, pending remarks about previous meetings, to use them as a starting point each time?
Yeah, I think we should include. I think maybe we should probably keep a running list so that at least we know what is IRs or any overspending. Then we can go through the list to kind of see, like, is there any progress made or not, right?
Okay.
I think, one of the things is it okay to put in a GitHub itself, or we want to manage it, right? That also would be good too.
Do you mean the notes or the running list?
The running list, yeah.
The running list, yes, I agree that we should have we should have it in GitHub for visibility, but it may need to be somehow processed, like not their own notes that we are keeping on each meeting, but a little better written lists, of what we're working on and what's the current status of this. For one, like the documents like that we are waiting for this legal clearance, I cannot mention the document until it's cleared, right? That's like a bit of funny problem there.
Now you can, even status can indicate it's pending thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, if you send me the instructions on the GitHub stuff, I can, if you want, I can do that for you. I don't mind.
Okay.
I'm guessing we'll have to set up a repo or something.
Okay, we're 7 minutes in. If there is no other opens or any other subjects, should we switch to the discussion about the fleet management project?
Yes.
With quotes that in like by calling it a project or let's call it product. I don't want to mess with the definition of a project in the OCP sense, right?
I think it's not a project. I think it's a concept. How you want to kind of approach it, right?
Yes.
I probably missed the few weeks in the December. So can you kind of briefly describe what the idea is and what we're talking about?
Yes, we had it on the agenda also. We mentioned that in the agenda of the previous video of 2023, which I think it's linked. I don't know if it's visible. If anybody has access problems with that, call me. The idea that John Long has brought up is that the OCP ecosystem is lacking a complete product that would do fleet management. If, let's say, a small player, let's take the case that a small player, a small data center operator wants to start from scratch and use OCP equipment, there was no offering at site for a fleet management solution, right? On our end, on the large hyperscalers, I assume all of us have their own proprietary solution, homegrown solution that can cover their data centers, and they do a lot, right? But otherwise, all of these are just proprietary. There is not a standard or something that an independent vendor could go on and build a product upon. Right? So since this CSM scope is very similar, or let's say suitable, we should think about a complete solution, not in terms for us to build it, but to describe it. And perhaps all this work we have been doing with describing the telemetry standard, describing the IMA or the lifecycle definitions could fit into doing that complete solution, and the other way around. If we were to think about that complete solution, we would have very good hints about what to do in lifecycle management or not.
But this will be for a smaller data center.
Of course, we would not go ahead and build or rebuild what we have for our large data centers. But if we were able to describe what a solution looks like, we may even benefit ourselves that already have something as to how to consolidate industry-wise, how to collaborate and build some common components on that.
So other way of think about it is if OCP system is released or contributed, what is the mechanism to even kind of test it, right? Kind of put a system on the showcase in a generic way, right?
Let me push back here.
Wants to build a product.
Yes, I would say this is yes. Go ahead.
Somebody wants to demonstrate if there is a open ecosystem available, it's possible they can make it is available, right?
So let me argue here that testing of a system is a different problem, and there is different teams in the OCP doing that. The management and management at scale is the problem we should focus at. So
I agree with it. I probably used wrong words. I think how do you want to demonstrate?
Let's be more precise with the words here. So the problem is that we have been talking about capturing a fault or doing testing, doing validations, doing conformance testing on OCP systems. But that might be for individual systems, and the orchestration or the scaling of all that, plus the management for, let's say, provisioning or whatnot. I think that's like kind of a greenfield in the OCP space that we need a solution for. Like if let's say we were to go and present a system, a full solution in the next OCP summit, we should be presenting also a management system that can provision it, that can check, like inventory check it, whatnot. And not in the sense of discovering the components of that system through Redfish, that's a solved problem already, but being able to manage the ingestion of new systems, the placements, whatnot, like life cycle for one, and then the manageability, configuration, whatnot.
Right, and also maybe it's possible they can schedule or cloud things like that. That's do you want to include in the scope or?
Yes, that's. I see that as a life cycle
right.
challenge.
So kind of taking an OCP platform and providing a step-by-step guide to building a data center. Is that how we would say it?
Yes. And the point is, if somebody, some company, some OCP member were to go ahead and try to build that as a product, what kind of specifications or requirements they would need to follow?
Checklist. Okay.
Yes.
So a step-by-step guide and a checklist. Okay, got it.
It's not only a checklist. We're talking about, if we were to have something, whether we would need to standardize those some interfaces, some procedures, that should not just be left to the implementation.
I see what you're saying. So not only do you point to existing standards, but if standards are missing in the checklist, we go ahead and define those standards. Yeah. Okay, got it.
So do we want to take a data center as a scope or rack level as a scope?
Yeah, that's what's going to ask you is what is the scope?
Data center.
But that
data
would naturally
at a
include
minimum. Yes.
But that will naturally include a rack, right? Because
because I'm very adamant on that because I know that John is already working on the rack level manager,
Right.
And such products are already, and like such projects are already in place, but we need to go one level up and talk about like the data center.
Yeah, right. You have multiple racks and you have a storage network, all those things are available, then how are you going to deal with it? Yeah.
And perhaps one of the key points is that we are no longer concerned about statically placed systems, but we need to be concerned or worry about the dynamics of racks arriving or being removed from this set. And that's like the life cycle that a product should address.
How do you decommission? How do you inventory manage? How do you replace? Okay.
Or even if you need to move racks around, let's say you need to balance your power in the data center and you need to rearrange your racks, the positions, whatnot, right? All of these things is something that a rack level manager would not do. And, a complete system should address.
So not only how to build it, but how to maintain it is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. How do you manage it? Example data center. Think of.
Yep. So we'll have to define use cases. We'll have to define a list of things that we want to go and address. How do we, like, once we identify the list of things, how do we ensure that that's a complete list? How do we kind of validate that?
Just sort of an idea, why don't we run a survey amongst ourselves, the experts from each company? Because, disclaimer, I'm not the ultimate expert of everything on my company either. So prepare a survey of questions of what the system should have, or whether this thing is important or not, and run it amongst us, running amongst OCP members, and try to figure out what is the key points that we should put in that ideal system.
Is there a way to get, like, is there an OCP, is there a way to do a call for comment kind of a thing? Like, can we publish that survey and get?
Yes, I suppose we are free to do that at any moment, to do a publication and like white paper or something, publish it and say, this is our call for comments, call for collaboration on the subject.
Yeah, I think the CMS, the composable memory subsystem team, they have done something similar to that, like creating a survey, asking the questions for the community. I think the main key point is first we need to identify a list. We cannot just leave it as open kind of thing, right?
Makes sense. No, first we have to do a little bit of work on our side,
right,
and
right.
kind of get a framework going, and then ask pointed questions, because otherwise it's like open-ended.
Right. Right.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's a great idea. Survey is a great idea. Yeah. So, okay, so even to get to the point of survey, we'll have to do a lot of work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think what is the questions we want to ask in the survey, and what are the, at least we need to have a initial stepping of a list, right? So then you can ask, do you want it, or we can always have some placeholder to say add some additional comments fields where people can provide additional input.
And I would dare to say that this is very similar to the lifecycle management white paper.
Correct.
In terms
Yeah,
of the ideas.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's another read of the lifecycle management white paper of, like, if you were to take that and make it a product, what would you focus at or require?
Yeah, I think that will help us ask the right questions and put those questions down in the survey. And we can also publish that white paper and say, this is the framework we are looking at. You can comment on the framework and then also comment on the questions that we have provided. Makes sense. That it all comes together. Makes sense.
And that makes us the correct work group to pull that off. Right.
So how are we going to generate that the list? Do we want to create a running survey questionnaire that we should start working on it and fill it up?
Should I just create an empty document and we start populating that with various ideas?
Right.
So
yeah,
let's say that we start an empty doc with a sandbox area where we put unstructured ideas first, so that we can discuss on a few weeks and convert that to a structured document, and from there on start asking questions.
That works. So it kind of a scratch pad first, and then
Exactly, scratch pad. Yes, scratch pad. So anybody else wants to comment on that? Or put it down.
Yeah, I don't mind taking the white paper as a starting point, and then if you create a document, an empty doc, I don't mind copying all the areas that we identified into it, and then that will be served as maybe we start with one page for each area, and if lots of information comes in there, then we can split it each area into different documents like in the Scratchpad, and then we'll have a way to collect those documents together, something like that. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, I don't mind. I can do that.
Yeah. Also brainstorming whether we could start by looking at the spatial aspect, like in space, like time axis, layering axis, whatnot, and try to say how does the management of a data center poses some challenge into this axes. Like, how do you manage your space? How do you manage the time, like processes? How do you manage the layering, like abstraction and segmentation, let's say, of the data center? Things like that. Very general ideas that we can then drill down and talk about concrete examples of what do you expect from each of these aspects.
Yeah, my 2 cents there is, I agree. We should put that in there and definitely have that. I think going back to I just recognized that going back to the earlier thing that you pointed out. So there are two areas here, and they're distinct, slightly distinct. One is how to build a data center, and then the other is how to maintain. And the maintenance part will include what you just said, like spatial and the timing and the layering. So if you had to because both of these are exuberant amount of work. They are. Is there? Do you think we should kind of do it as a stepped approach, like start with one and then go to the other? If you had to pick one, which one?
No, I think our role is to describe the full picture. For a start, build it just to describe the full picture. For example,
so we need both.
Another thing, yeah. Yes. The other thing I thought is like, what would be, let's say, if that were a system or a product, what would be the inputs and outputs? So let's say that it needs to interface with a rack level manager, or it needs to produce reports for financial regulators, like assets reports, or it needs to integrate with, let's say, closed product that does building facilities monitoring. These things could go into the document to say, this is, building blocks or system blocks that we would need to consider, for example.
Is it, let me give you an example and see if that falls under this category as well. Like, for example, you mentioned the spatial requirements, so power requirements. So, how there is a power block and then there is the rack block. And obviously the rack consumes X amount of power, and power block produces, the output of the power block is Y amount of power. Now, obviously the Y has to be greater than the X. So you can put that rack in that power block. Is that the kind of dependencies you're talking about? That's what you mean by input output?
No, okay. Yes. So this already, sparked a few things in my mind. First of all, that's like if we were to build, or if somebody were to build a product, they would have to have power management as a feature, like, or a subsystem in that product, right? They need to do power management. There is power estimation, power budgeting, and there is this dynamic power handling that needs to happen. Or if somebody has a solution already for the dynamic power, no, not even throttling, is about like assigning the correct power at runtime, being able to throttle a few systems, or control the flow of power, because you will most probably have over subscription. I cannot think of any data center that has under subscription of power, right? So you will have over subscription, and being able to handle this over subscription is a non-trivial problem. So you would need a building block that is your power manager, and it needs to integrate to that. And in power management, you would need to think about your allocation of space. So the power management has to interface with your ongoing operations on its row or data center, aisle, or whatnot. So this is something that needs to be described as a spec, as an interface.
Understood. So that's what you mean by input output. What would be the minimum things that, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So you press the button now, talking about power management. You see it expands to so many little things, right? You may, next thing that comes to my mind is liquid cooling, right? That was, or even like traditional air cooling, right? So cooling, which is also so closely related to power, cooling is another aspect. So a data center management interface, even if your cooling is handled by a completely different external system, being able to interface your cooling manager with your power manager or your aisle manager, it would be a challenge, let's say. It would be a point of discussion. So mention that.
You also have a Scott, Jim, and Jerry. Is there any inputs or anything from them?
I'm in listening mode right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea is good. That I think, as mentioned, I think we need to define what are the input and what are the output, and as a beginning and as a surface discussion, then we can go deeper from each items.
Also, regarding kind of survey of creating a running list. again, if you guys have a suggestion, I think it'll be good to kind of hold into that.
Okay, so Sami, go.
Yeah. One more thing on that list, right? What do we want to exclude certain things, or do you want to have any discussion on that? I mean, we have to include a lot of things, but is there anything that we want to kind of exclude? Hey, we don't want to spend time on particular areas that we want to.
There could be areas.
Slightly under.
Sorry, go ahead, Nirav. Nirav?
Sorry, my bad. Accidental mute.
Okay,
For example, we will not be kind of discussing cost, or I don't know whether we be discussing about TCO, things like that, right? Is there anything you want to be part of it or outside? Or
we could write ourselves away from specific areas by mentioning them and reasoning why this system should not do that. So
right.
we could say that, let's say, TCO is not something that the system will do, but it will provide the inputs to that,
right.
like as the utilization of the systems, and then an external system, like we can describe in the doc that we expect an external system to be doing that. We could say that, like, interface with a power grid or whatnot, that this is not our problem to solve, but this is the extent as to which an OCP fleet management system should go to interface that.
Right. So I think that will kind of, even part of our running list, right? We can say, we are consciously, we are not spending time on this right now. That way, we can have answers. Say, or if somebody is asking, why are you not looking at it? We can say, like, we took approach of not addressing those things, right?
Yeah. Also, we should find other things that are already covered, already developed by other OCP groups, and it would be good to mention them and linked to the specific groups. Like, I can think of the fault management group already,
right.
The hardware fault management, which is our parent, and say detecting faults, describing faults is done by that system, which is handled by that team already.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean that we need to reinvent everything from scratch.
Yeah, I think kind of having a running list of items to be considered, and out of that we can say, like, this is not covered, and this is we are not in the scope, or we are expecting other teams covering it, so we are not even spending time there, right?
So when we review each running list, we'll have that discussion, and we'll naturally come up with list we are covering and list we are not covering. So that will naturally happen.
Yeah, and we could even have, I would see that as an internal list in this group to see which other partners of OCP or insider companies we should be asking about certain modules or certain areas, right? We could say that, we are in discussions with this fault management group about that interface, or testing and validation, or decommissioning procedures, or security around this thing, and say, there is teams there, and we are discussing with them about what would be their interfaces to a complete management with end-to-end management solution.
Right.
Yeah, agree. And in fact, I will go a step further and say we should ratify it. Like, for example, like the power management example we took, right? We have a power manager that takes input from the power system and make decisions. When we're deciding on those inputs and outputs, we should get it ratified by the right OCP team.
Yeah. There could even be standards. in some areas.
Yeah, they already might exist, and we can just pick those input outputs from there. But if they don't, and if we go about defining those, then we should at least, at the very least, if not work with them, but ratify it with them.
Yes, I remember the standard you presented, Sami, about power utilization, and we could just link to initiatives like that and say, we will be using this standard, or be trying to be compatible with this standard by providing or collecting this kind of information.
Yeah, I think like even you said hardware fault management, right? I think once we put this running list, after that we can say it's covered there and it's not in scope, and here is things that we really want to go after a survey to say like out of that remaining list, which one is really important, where you want to concentrate, right?
Yes, like the good example with fault management is that even if that group can identify faults and give us the servers, the devices that are at fault, the logistics of handling something that needs to be repaired fall into something which is not yet covered, for example.
Right. How do you at scale is that thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the example I took, is that, you need to feed that with the inventory. So if you want to repair something or spare something, another question you have to ask yourself is, do I have that in my inventory or not? And is my inventory running low on those things? So that kind of comes into that input-output loop.
Or even the personnel. The personnel might be a factor that you need to allocate your people to go and fix the machines that are down.
Until we have robots to do that. Yes.
No, even so, even if you have robots, I don't believe that you would be able to cover your entire data center in a single pass, right?
Correct. No, I'm just
There's some finite resources in each level.
Yeah, robots are also finite. Yes.
Maybe even your LCM side, Nirav, right? How do you deal with those kind of things? Is one of the things that data center operator need to figure out, right?
Yeah. No, I think that all should fall under inventory, and like inventory of people, inventory of resources, inventory of the devices, components, and then I guess there needs to be and I think that is all representation, and then we can have models around it, but there is this niche part of it where how I pick what system to repair when and how might be something that when
timing
and all that
spectrum involved, right? Because even if we have people, like we cannot go and send them to every single system at the same time.
Correct.
Schedule.
And not only that, I mean, I might, depending on what I'm doing, I mean, the data center operator might say, I want to prioritize this section first, and that might be proprietary in the sense that
but still schemas need to allow, right?
Yeah, you said the magic word. It's resource management. A resource management system beyond the inventory of servers is needed, right?
Absolutely.
So that would be a component. We will need to describe models on the resource management, being the people, being the robots, being the tools or the time needed for management, for physical operations. This is one thing, right?
No, I completely agree. I think what you said last time also, I agree with that as well, that our job is to provide data models and representation. How that gets used, even in this case, I think that would be, is that what you're saying too? Is like, we'll provide the data models, or okay, if you want this thing repaired, it will take this long, and this is your inventory. But the logic of when to repair what might be proprietary, is what I was trying to say. Is that fair? Or
yes.
Okay. So standards has to stop at that edge, where we kind of provide data models for how to represent what exists on your on your data center. How you use it is proprietary. It's unique.
Yes, and we could. Go ahead.
I think there's two portions, right?
Mhm.
Is that what is needed from technology perspective and what you need in operational perspective, right? Separate it out, right?
Makes sense. Exactly. Agree. So I think just covering what is not in scope, right? I mean, since Sammy asked that question, that's why I mentioned the actual algorithm used to kind of make decisions of when to repair what, or kind of when to use these, how to use these data models would be out of the scope for us, right? I mean, that's what I meant.
It could even be that the details of the models are out of scope, like whether we are using robots or using trays of equipment or toolboxes. That could be proprietary to its operator of how do they want to go about and fix their servers, right?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Is there is something called repairer, right? It's a resource. How that resource is implemented is beyond us. It's not up to us. I mean, but what we need to do is, they're given a resource, right? How long does it take? Is a data model property that needs to be represented. How long does it take for this?
Cannot be, right? I think, do we have a mechanism to do that, right? Do you have constructs to apply it?
Correct. Availability is another thing. Yes.
Right.
Yes. So yeah, I think if you can define our data models in a very generic way, we should be able to do that. Whether you use robots or humans should not matter to the model, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we should be able to.
But I think the list need to contain this, and we can say these are excluded. We are not.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is, we'll define the resources, we'll define the models. How you implement the models is out of scope for us. You could use robots or you could use humans. That's up to you.
Yes. Or you could have like data centers in the ocean that you need to pull them out, or immersed data centers that you need to drain the fluid
liquid out of
you
the
go
liquid
in.
cooling.
Yes, right. Yeah. So you would have these cases that you need to do something special, and our role is not to go and tell you how to do that, but have a model that, you have a broken DIMM in one of these servers, and you should balance the cost of what it costs to drain to replace that DIMM. Right?
Exactly. So we can represent the cost, the downtime, the things like that as the properties of the resource manager, and then that gets feed into a proprietary algorithm that the data center operator can use to make decisions.
Yes.
Makes sense. Agree.
Okay. So I suppose we are kind of in an agreement and a very fruitful discussion about this subject.
So just a logistic before we close this topic.
Yes.
So Panos, you are going to create a link where people are filling in, or is it Nirav is going to put up a step and we are kind of adding it, or what is it?
I will create a link right away now, and we could copy paste some of the lifecycle data management doc into this sandbox area or the scratchpad area, start typing anything that we think is useful, perhaps put down the transcription of this meeting today there, and in the next meetings, I'm not sure like whether it would be next week or the week after, schedule in our agenda to go over that and try to bring it into structure.
Yeah, I think next week let's do a spot check on what is things. Probably not a complete list going to be, right. Let's get a time for people to fill in.
So
but
next
we
week,
want to see the list grows, right?
Yeah. Next week, our agenda nominally would be the lifecycle management document, which is a bit tangential. So if we are to finalize the document or just work on that document, that also serves as an input to the next one, which would be the fleet management product, let's say.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Also, I'm kind of thinking before release the life cycle, do we want to get the complete survey done, maybe we even point to that as part of the, maybe we release the document and say that it's surveyed for next step or something like that.
I would not couple them.
Okay.
I'd rather we reach a maturity level in the lifecycle document, independent of the other work we will be doing for the product, like not block it on the other, but just agree among us that we will have a rough idea of how the fleet management product document will look like before we publish the lifecycle, so that we don't cannibalize between one or the other, right? Okay. Only to that level, but don't put the survey as a requirement, as a blocker to the lifecycle management.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Then otherwise it takes time and work.
Yes.
Okay, agree. What I think the dependency can be easily be resolved by me just copying over the stuff, the areas into the document that you're going to create, and that way we can just decouple the two activities. And so I can do that if you send me a note when you have created it and point me to the link, and I will just copy over the things and a brief description of each areas from the paper into the document, and then we can go from there. And then if you decide to remove things out of that, that's okay. I mean, we can it'll be like a conscious decision then.
Okay. Do we have any other topics, opens, or closing remarks?
Not the only thing is we need to get IMA. I think I didn't get a chance to sync up with George, right? I think we should start seeing some progress there too. Probably ping.
Okay, I put that down in my notes. If nothing else, I'm eager to give everybody 10 minutes back.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then see you next week. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you, everyone.
Good day.
Thank you.